Hello friends, in our previous video while talking about DRHP we have covered the risk factor, external risk, internal risk. Otherwise also in any business to control risk is very important. We can divide the risk into two parts. I mean two major categories, the systematic risk and the non-systematic risk or unsystematic risk. Systematic risks are such which are based on the macro factors, which are based on the factors which are not in the control of the company or the people who are controlling the company, while the unsystematic risks are controllable. They are in our hand to assess and take the measures to control them. Now let us look at what kind of systematic risks are there. There is a market risk, there is a currency risk, there is external happenings, global happenings, like who anticipated that the oil prices will crash to this extent from 110 US dollars to sub 30 US dollars. Who could predict just 2 years back the fall in China's GDP or slowdown of Chinese economy? Now that is very difficult to predict. That is not in your hand. But let's look at non-systematic risk. Risk about liquidity risk, the financial risk, the product risk, operational risk. Now these are very micro, which can be understood, analyzed, and corrective measures to contain the risk can be taken. Every company has certain amount of appetite for the risk. Every business has a risk. You have certain amount of appetite to take the risk. Beyond that, you have a tolerance. But thereafter, it is uncontrollable. So, at the entire endeavor and efforts of the management should be to contain the risk within the appetite, within the limits, not allowing it to go crossing even tolerance. Let's look at the financial and the liquidity risk. What happens when you don't have liquidity to support a large order? Your own working capital limits should be such that they should not remain utilized to the maximum extent all the time. Or you should have some liquid assets, stocks, some very liquid debtors which can be realized very fast in case of any need. Your working capital cycle may get disturbed when the economic slowdown is there. So, if you know, if you anticipate, if you analyze properly, there are risk containment measures which can be applied. Similarly, in case of product risk, suddenly a new product comes in. Now what happens to all these stores, the malls, the physical brick and mortar selling when these online business channels have come? They have just literally killed the market of the brick and mortar model. What happens to the old telephone industry? when the cell phone comes in. And what happens to those cameras? Of course, I am not talking about these high powered cameras, but who goes to buy the camera today when you have the cell phone, very powerful camera built in it? Similarly, when you come to your operational risk, your people leaving the company because they get the better scope somewhere else. There is a strike, unrest. Your supply chain is not properly synchronized. Your business get affected because of that. The market risk, the competitors comes in and you are not in a position to take on. Many of them are coming with huge foreign funds. So, my dear friends, it is very important to evaluate, to understand these kind of risks which are under your control. You can mitigate the risk to a great extent. At least you should make a study which risk can be avoided or can be reduced or transferred, and then if none of them, then accept the risk and prepare for it. If you have a proper risk management policy, you will never be caught unaware. Let's take the case of the Kingfisher Airlines. The airline which came in 2005 with a lot of fanfare couldn't sustain for a long time its operations. In 2007 it took over Deccan Airline and it has never made any profit. From 2008-9 onwards only the problems started surfacing, and finally in 2010 the company defaulted in the payments of even to staff and statutory dues. From 2012 onwards the problem became more severe because the company defaulted to the banks in their repayments, and slowly the things went out of order. In 2014 many banks declared this company as a willful defaulter, and finally the stage came when the person at the main person at the helm of the affair has to leave the country to save himself from these problems. But is it the alternative? Don't you think if proper risk management tools were used, risk would have been assessed at a very early stage and taken care of, this situation would have come? No. I think the situation in which this airline or the company is today could have been averted. Thank you.